When I walk in, every ancestral move. Every cell in my body got an ancient groove. I ain't searching for truth, I embody the proof. You look at me, you see the lineage. Every obstacle shift when I rise in them.
Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome back to another round of My Patriot Report Live. I am the bridge connecting the next generation to federal contracting. I am Ritwan Hill, and with me, I have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ambassador of Peace. And if you don't know who he is by now, you might want to ask Gemini, Mr. Walter Cotton III. Mr. Cotton, how you doing today, man?
I am well, thank you. I am well. What about yourself?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Can't complain. I saw you flashing a book just now. What was that?
You know, it is the book from a gentleman who has influenced my philosophy on the strategic approach to wealth capture and management. His name is Dr. Claude Anderson, and he wrote a powerful series on economics and how you empower underserved communities through powernomics. And after that Supreme Court decision on the voter case in Louisiana, something motivated me to take another look at it, because he said some things in there that may be relevant. But that is the book that you saw me flashing, Powernomics by the great Dr. Claude Anderson. And look, there's green in there, so my green screen is covering it. Great book.
Sir, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I'd love to interview him or have him on the podcast, you know. So you mentioned about the Supreme Court case. Now, to my understanding, the court said that Louisiana could not make race to control the factor in drawing the map unless the law clearly required it and the Constitution allowed it. Now, can you break that down for me? Like exactly what happened in that case? What are we looking at?
Well, what we're looking at is a situation where conservative members of our society took a long view strategy in believing that if they could pack the Supreme Court with individuals that were favorable to their missions, whims, and intentions, that they could take some of the things that they believe are long ills in this country and they could correct them. I believe one example that they targeted early was the Abortion Rights Act under Roe v. Wade. And because they were able to correctly configure the court, right, the court leaned towards their direction and reversed that decades old authority or right that our women citizens enjoyed. And in this particular instance, that same court that has been configured to favor a conservative position has made a decision regarding components of the Civil Rights Act that they are finding to be unconstitutional because they infringe on equal protection under the Constitution.
So similar, pretty much it sounds like it's similar to what they did with dismantling DEI, because it wasn't equal rights for everybody, essentially. Is that what it goes down to?
That was the underlying premise that they used to justify the decision to dismantle the Small Disadvantaged Business, or MWBE, program under the Department of Transportation, to attack the 8A program under Ultima. And so, yeah, that is what they've used to suggest that those programs are disenfranchising those programs that support the balancing of conditions in this country for underserved citizens who have been disenfranchised. Those programs are unconstitutional.
Okay, now we focus on the Constitution. There's been a lot of unconstitutional actions. So it seems like this is some reverse jitsu type actions where maybe a grander understanding than the masses really understand of how to use the Constitution, or how the Constitution can help those individuals.
You point to a very important consideration that we need to look at this time, because the efforts that or should I say, the partisan efforts, right, to stack the court in one way has unleashed a torrent of changes that are going to come in the form of our laws, statutes, but more importantly, the interpretation of the Constitution, as was in this particular case. And you could sit, a group of fair-minded justices around the table, and I think that they would be evenly divided over whether or not this current decision was fair, to not allow them to utilize race to draw political boundaries, when in point of fact, all of those boundaries are drawn based on race. In this particular instance, they're just pointing to one race, right? Mm-hmm. And so what we have is a situation where the intention of the Constitution, based on the interpretation of one side of the political spectrum, is being affected, is being influenced. And what that suggests to me is that we need to slow this process down as much as we possibly can, and put in some court reform statutes, some court reform legislation that ensures that these kind of shenanigans, these kind of under the table efforts aren't employed moving forward, which actually represent a threat, an informal change to our constitutional authorities.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, when you say a reform, we were having a conversation, and I asked the question. So, does the Supreme Court have do they have terms? Congress and the president, do they operate in terms?
No, and that's one of the challenges with the Supreme Court right now, and that is the fact that when judges are appointed to the Supreme Court, they're appointed with a lifetime appointment. And there have been many arguments that have been raised over the decades as to whether or not that makes sense in a economy, a society that's evolving as rapidly as ours. In addition to the fact that they don't have the term limit, they also have been given some authorities, right, that were taken away from some of the district and regional courts. And so the Supreme Court's body of work has expanded over the years to cover areas that are affecting jurisdictions that they shouldn't have the authority to affect. It was not a part of the original imagining of our founding fathers. So I think that we may be, I think we've definitely reached a place where we need to look at court reform. We need to look at judicial reform because it's required. I think we just reached that place where our antiquated configuration of the courts just don't support today's judicial needs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, we talk about the judicial, legislative, and executive branch now, and I do remember us talking about that in school. But for people who may not understand what each of those branches are what their purpose is, I break it down like executive branch, CEO, president, right? Then judicial, you think judges, and then you think legislative, you think legislation, laws. So is that accurate of how people maybe have an easier way to understand what each branch is responsible for?
I think that's a good base way of understanding it, right? The Article 1 of the Constitution created the statutory or legal or congressional branch, right? Article 2 created that CEO, right? That president branch of government. and Article 3 created the judicial branch, and the judicial branch is the branch that yesterday had the scales with blindfold on, right? Today's Supreme Court seems to be leaning one way, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a good way to understand the responsibilities of the different branches.
Yes, sir. Now we were speaking. Now the whole point of the Louisiana case, right, was the redistricting. What does redistricting mean in plain English? Like what does that mean?
In plain English, it means to take the constituent attributes of an area and reorganize them such that they represent what the leaders of that community think should be represented, right? So they are redistricting. They're changing the voter lines of these districts in order to accomplish the goal du jour, the goal of the day. And in this particular instance, since that Supreme Court has now weighed in on the idea that the underlying thesis for which they built the Voters' Right Act no longer matters, they are redistricting based on something other than fair proportions of voter representation.
Okay, so is this a positive or a negative action? Just in general, well, more specific in Louisiana, would that be no? Matter of fact, in general, is that a positive or negative?
Well, I think that if you change the way you look at things, then the things you look at change. And so if you look at this from an ethnocentric lens, this is not a good thing for minority voters. This is not a good thing for Black voters because their ability to influence the political process has been demonstratively changed. But if you look at things differently, like from the perspective of my good friend, well, not good friend, but Dr. Claude Anderson, right? You see the order of merit in terms of what you need to have in place in order to have a viable community, a viable environment that you can control. And in Dr. Anderson's model, which is what I love, it starts with economics, right? The foundation of his model in terms of how you control your community, your environment, starts with economics. And since we live in a golden rule society, right? He who has the gold rules. I think that we can take our attention and right now move it away from, this disenfranchised voter position and hyper focus it on the economic empowerment, the economic acquisition, and set our sights on addressing that voter, right? That elected leader challenge after we've got our economic house in order. And so that's what kind of drew me back to Dr. Anderson's book, because that vote, it suggested to me that this cascading failure that Byron Allen started with his court case with Comcast, right, where they changed the definition of discrimination, is only leading to a day where we're looking at a headline that says they have eliminated the Civil Rights Act. And I say that and I can hear the audience gasp because that has been, like a bellwether that, supposedly protected the interest and the rights of the underserved. I would debate that over a good cup of coffee and suggest to you that maybe it's a good thing that we get rid of the Civil Rights Act. Maybe we've grown to the place that we can correct that error that was made so many years ago, where they had the audacity and unmitigated gall to suggest that they would offer a group of human beings civil rights. I think that this may be a season where we can correct that error and we can offer all the citizens of these United States, right, the full access to the American dream by passing a human rights bill.
Mm, mm, that's powerful. So essentially, what you're saying is they had to create a civil rights act or civil rights because a group of people, a race had disadvantage, the unfair advantage. So they had to create some rights so they can more have more rights, essentially.
Yes, they absolutely did. And we don't have to look
Yeah.
at the unfair and ugly history of America. And we've got some dark components in our past that we know exist, right? But we don't live in the past. We can't live in the past, right? We can only imagine the future, right? What we do have is the power of now, right? We have the power of this particular moment. And in this moment, we have the opportunity to imagine what's best for this generation, right? And it kind of, intersects that book I talked to you about, my friend Sophia Nelson wrote, which is, I'm telling you, it should become a new bestseller, right? Redefining Freedom, where she postulates that every generation should have the ability to redefine freedom for their generation. And so in this particular instance, I think that we have the opportunity to redefine rights, right? Because we are a kinder, right, more integrated nation, right? We've learned to live together, to build together, right? And so the people that are on the outlier of our community, those that are racist, right? Those that would want to pit, one social costume against another social costume, they've lost their favor, right? They've lost their salt, right? And so I would submit that maybe there's time for us to consider a human rights bill. Maybe we should support getting rid of civil rights.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's powerful. That's power. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense at the end of the day when you say everybody equal, we all humans at the end of the day. So we all should have the same rights. Yeah. So that makes perfect
Well,
sense.
it's like a late night talk show host that I used to enjoy watching, Arsenio Hall, used to say, these are the kind of things that make you go, hmm.
Now, while we focus on the economics, and veterans more specifically, what does economic empowerment mean in regards to the veteran community? Like, is it a difference from citizens to veterans when it comes to economic empowerment and maybe advantages or disadvantages that they have?
Right now, veterans have the highest possible advantage in our federal contracting space because we have a existing set of laws, right, under this rule of law driven society that has disenfranchised the minority community, right? This dismantling DEI has taken the minority community and it has put them to the greatest risk level in contracting. I recently saw an overture that the target is now, or should I say, the aperture is now being focused on the woman-owned business community. They are equally being pushed into this persona non grata place. And so what that has ultimately allowed is it has allowed the veteran community to rise to the safest, right, least risk award source in the federal space. So what that means for the veteran community is if you get your feces amalgamated, right, you can put yourself in a position to be able to help America do what we need to do right now, right, which is stabilize our economy. We need to make America safe again by making sure that our economic engines are flowing on all levels. They're flowing in all directions. And so the federal government is the largest single customer in North America. And so if you're a veteran, a disabled veteran, you have a competitive advantage in acquiring contracts to do work for that customer. And so what I'm suggesting and what I'm encouraging, because I believe America wants its veterans to be rich, I'm encouraging you to get up off the couch, get out of that office that you're working in, and put your entrepreneurial shingle on the street while the rule of law is still in place, while the advantage that you enjoy in the contracting arena still exists. And if the history, especially the most recent history, isn't a predictor of the future with what they've done to the small disadvantaged business community and what they are now targeting in the 8A and woman-owned community, isn't a wake-up call for us, let my message to you be the wake-up call that says you need to get out of the mustard so you can catch up right now.
Mhm, mhm. Now, we focus on federal contracting and in the broader economics of things. What are your thoughts on? I heard two different sides when people say real estate is a bad investment. They got real estate, stock market, business. What are your thoughts on these other lanes like real estate, and the stock market? What are your thoughts on those as economic engines? Because veterans have, well, not the stock market, but for real estate, we have VA home loans where we can build multifamily homes and house more veterans, and it's a housing shortage. What are your thoughts on real estate being a lane or an engine to drive economics for veterans?
Well, there are a lot of financial Miss Cleos out there that are telling people that, buying stocks, day trading, buying real estate, makes all the sense in the world. And when I hear, especially those people talking to individuals that come from communities like the one I come from, I always recognize that they're missing an important element, right? And the important element is I have to have the wherewithal, right? I have to have the foundational dollars necessary to go out and buy that share in Amazon or buy that duplex that you're talking about. And so one of the things that we hyper focus on is the how you get those foundational dollars. And
Mhm.
we point your attention towards government contracting because we've seen at least $1.3 trillion worth of opportunity out there. And so to say that in a way that, I think may stir up a little controversy, right? We don't need to be talking to these underserved communities about day trading and about buying stock. We need to be talking to these underserved communities about how they build the wealth foundation necessary so that they could pass something on to the next generation of their family and maybe put one of their future generations in a position to be able to have some real hard assets like property, right? Some real hard assets like gold. But I think it's kind of disingenuous, right, to talk to a person that doesn't have anything beyond their weekly paycheck and they're running week to week about how you could go out and buy NVIDIA stock and how the NVIDIA stock could grow your portfolio, right? When you don't have the wherewithal to spend and I don't even know how much NVIDIA stock costs, but you don't have the wherewithal to go out and buy that share of stock, right? I think it's disingenuous for us to promote that without first giving them a clear roadmap and pathway to how. And with government contracting being so rich and available, right? Dave Stewart, if you haven't heard that name, Google it, right? Dave Stewart, the richest man of color, family of color in North America, got his start in government contracting as an 8A contractor. put that one in your pipe and smoke it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, now that you say that, and we know that 8A is being disenfranchised right now, you could pretty much replace that 8A for veterans. So when you say that, how I think about it is, okay, if 8A gone and veterans the best thing, if I'm a veteran right now, I have the opportunity to be the next Dave Stewart, but just using the veteran, being a veteran.
You absolutely do, but the truth of that matter is, every veteran that's within the sound of our voice
Mm-hmm.
um, owns a golden ticket, like to the Willy Wonka factory, right? But that's pure potentiality, right? The veterans that are in the cheap seats at the top of the stadium on any given Sunday have the pure potentiality to be down there on the field playing, right? But they're not. And so what we're telling every veteran that can hear, you've got to engage, right? This is an opportunity that's not going to come and tackle you down. It's going to lay there dormant, waiting for you to take advantage of it. And we're encouraging. We're speaking on behalf of your future generations, man. Get your ass in gear. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And on that note, guys, we've been driving this message consistently, and we're going to keep pushing this message that get your Congress to get engaged and ask them to sponsor the Contract Our Veterans Act and the Veteran Member Business Loan Act. This is another reason why veteran empowerment is so important, guys. Like, imagine you being able to come together in your veteran communities and work together as veterans and build out your own ecosystem full of veterans. We got so many advantages: vet franchise, federal contracting, depending on certain states like Texas and Georgia and so forth and so on. They got advantages in state contracting. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing this. If you're a veteran, you should be pushing this message down because you're getting more advantages for you. And
I want to add one. I want to co-sign what you said, because what we are demonstrating with this action is how you make your vote matter, right? How you actually make your vote matter. And you actually make your vote matter by configuring the Congress to adhere to your interest and will. And you can do that, right, after the vote is done by staying in relationship with your Congress. Stay in relationship with your representative and your senators. Make sure that they know what your interests are, because that's going to affect their longevity, their ability to stay there. If they don't know that, right, if they only see you, right, when it's November voting day, that's a problem. And so we're looking to change that equation, because the branch of government that was set up by Article 1 are the people's representatives. They work for us. Let's start instructing them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And guys, on that note, we'll catch y'all tomorrow, same place, same time. I am Ratwan Hill, and that is the Mr. Walter Cotton III. Until next time, guys.